come.
Indeed. It's always good to stick with what you know, what has, like, if a deck has already gotten you to top 8 at one regional, it's really hard to let go of that deck in a different situation. But I think important things to note, we have over on Sawyer's end, he's playing the Kyogre with the Raikou and the Dragonite, not the Zamazenta, which is what we saw Raymond take down Peoria with, and then over at Pittsburgh, we saw this version of Kyogre take down the tournament. And then over at Felipe's side, his deck list is looking pretty standard except for a couple of cards. Number one, the Penny, which was a card that was usually dropped from a lot of Charizard decks, but I think will be especially handy against Sableye, damage counters. He's also using the 70 HP Charmanders as well as the 60 HP Pidgeys, so trying to minimize the damage that Sableye can do. And then there's a Radiant Serena.
Yeah, usually in Canada, you don't see a penny anymore, but Felipe is opting for it in his list here. 2 Boss's Orders in the prize cards for Felipe here. Does play 3, and then 2 Iono. Plays 3 of those 2. There's a lot of supporters.
That's a lot of supporters indeed. And over on Sawyer's side, 1 Colress, which is not too problematic. It's at the very top, so Sawyer will likely end up playing the whole game with only 3 Colress, because Kyogre usually doesn't take too many prizes quickly. They'll try to focus on taking 2 and then finishing the game with Kyogre, depending on Felipe's side of the field. Now, the 2 Ionos, though, for Felipe, I think that's going to be pretty crucial, because you want to continually deny your opponent's hand whilst applying pressure, especially against Lost Box.
Now, Charizard, as a deck, does have a little trouble setting up if you don't get those rare candies in time. And it could depend on how fast Sawyer starts things off with stuff like Sableye and the Cramorants. But Felipe going to open things up. Pidgey in the active spot, Battle VIP Pass. What you want to see anytime you're playing a deck with Battle VIP Pass, when you see that first turn, it's always going to be better.
It's always such a relief to see that Battle VIP Pass. You're like, okay, I definitely get to play this game. I'm definitely going to be able to apply pressure. And I mean, assuming your hand is good enough to have a follow-up to that, right? But I believe based on the interaction that I saw between those players, Sawyer might have won the coin flip and let Felipe go first, because Felipe double-checked with Sawyer if he was going first. So there's merit to choosing that, as Sawyer being aggressive. And then Charizard is a deck that if you get to play Arven on turn 1, then you get to go for the Battle VIP Pass, right? So a much higher chance that you get the full setup if you go second. I'm not saying you want to go second, but there's definitely different dynamics here at play.
Has the Fire Energy to retreat the Pidgey and gets the Entei V in the active spot, fleet-footed to draw an extra card. Finds mana? No, the Mew.
Yep, Mew. So that could be useful if the Entei ever goes down. I'm not super big on the Entei. I mean, at this point, you don't know you're up against Kyogre, but that Entei could be one of the targets that ends up being Kyogred, essentially, towards the end of the game. Yeah, it's too early to tell, but that is one possibility.
And especially if you are forced to play something like Lumineon V from your hand, which we know Felipe has already. That's just another 2 easy prize cards later on for Sawyer. So it's definitely something you're going to have to kind of work around the entire game. Granted, with the Manaphy in the active, like you were saying, not really sure. But if you've followed any of our broadcasts before, Sawyer has been on this deck for a while.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the player, you can make an educated guess on their deck. If you're unfamiliar, though, and you only see a Manaphy, Manaphy can mean many, many things, right? So I think that second Nest Ball, or that Nest Ball that was played, if there was a Comfey in the active, I 100% I'm looking for Manaphy instead of that second Charmander on the possibility of a turn 1 concealed cards Radiant Greninja. Once they start the Manaphy, it's less likely, and you don't know exactly what you're up against. So I like that second Charmander, but for now, Felipe's bench is definitely open up for grabs.
We'll have to see if Sawyer can pull together a pretty stellar turn here or not, but grabbing the first Comfey with Nest Ball, has another Nest Ball in hand to go along with 4 Sealstone, a Raikou V, so that could equal the course's Experiment. It'll just be kind of figuring out the sequencing for this turn to see what you can end the turn with an attack.
Yeah, so you're being very diligent as well, taking notes, which Lost Box decks definitely merit. I would say there are decks that do not necessarily merit taking notes and figuring out all your prizes, but Lost Box is a deck where every time you're using flower selecting, every time you're using colors, you have to make very important decisions based on the amount of resources you have left. So knowing exactly what's available to you and what isn't is very, very key.
It's all about those micro decisions, like you were saying. Every flower selecting can make or break the game depending on what 2 cards you end up finding off the top of the deck. It's also why a lot of players like to opt for something like a Colossus Experiment beforehand if you already have it. Here's Escape Rope, going to bring up the Comfey to the active spot. And wow, oh no, okay. Radiant Greninja and Colossus Experiment. What do you choose here?
Oh, it's very, very difficult. Lost zoning away the Radiant Greninja has so many implications throughout the whole game. Makes you weaker to Ionos, makes you weaker to being able to fetch 2 prizes, but I do think it's a card you need to take. You need to Lost Zone because Colress is just so essential right here. But definitely a rough situation already to start the game for Sawyer.
Hey, well, it's okay. This Colossus Experiment found another one, and along with the 1 in the prize cards, that's 3 already. Let's go along with it. You have Pokestop, Switch Cart, Energy Recycler. Seems like Energy Recycler is the choice along with the second, or the Battle VIP pass here.
Now, very interesting to note that Sawyer is playing 4 Super Odds and only 1 Energy Recycler, which is definitely different than the norm. That does leave Sawyer with 3 Super Odds available left because there's another 1 in the prize card. So pulling off a Kyogre is a little more difficult with that combination of cards, I would say.
Going to be difficult for Kyogre. You have no Moonlight Shuriken anymore. But here we're just going to hopefully end the turn with Spit Innocently from that Cramorant using that Lost Provisions with 4 cards in the Lost Zone. You see Switch Cart in hand already that can give you another flower selecting. That means the 4th card is imminent. Mirage Gate, I think, what was that? Yep, Mirage Gate. And again, when it's a decision like that, where it's just obvious, you often see these Lost Zone players kind of take a little bit of time because you do not want to give your opponent that info of, oh, well, if it's Mirage Gate, you're just going to take 1 immediately. Well, now they're going to know you have a Mirage Gate in hand.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, there's not a lot of cards that you would immediately take over a Mirage Gate other than the same card, right? So, yes, even though it seems like an obvious decision, the amount of information that you give to your opponent at any given moment is also very important to minimize, right? So the more you keep your opponent guessing on what you have, what you could do, and what you can't do is going to play a major role in every single game of Pokemon.
Oh, wow. We saw the 4 Seal Stone. Use that Star Alchemy on that Dragonite V for an energy, just so you can retreat to the Cramorant, get some damage down on this Entei V. You will be able to 2-hit knock it out. Or no, you won't be able to because 230 HP.
Yeah, 230 HP. And despite Cramorant being a Water-type Pokemon, its attack does not apply weakness. I can't tell you how many times I've seen players make that mistake, which is an easy one to make, right? But Spit Instantly specifically states that weakness will not be applied. And now Felipe has a chance to take the initiative here, take this first knockout, and if Sawyer responds with a Dragonite, then this Spit Innocently is essentially a wasted turn.
And here we see that Luminous Sign for Arven will be able to grab 4 Sealstone and Rare Candy. This is what the deck chooses, or what the deck tries to do every time. 4 Sealstone can now search the deck for any card. We're going to see Pidgeot EX. Grab that, or the Charizard. I already have maybe one of them in hand. I saw 2 Rare Candies in hand, so we're for sure going to see Pidgeot EX and that Charizard EX hit the table this turn.
Indeed, that's definitely Felipe's best and most likely play here. And I'm not sure, I believe Fleet-Footed has not been used. I would have loved to see that being used before immediately benching that Luminion, because what if you find an Arven, right? What if you find an Arven of the Fleet-Footed? All of a sudden, you don't need to bench this Luminion. And at this point, you don't know exactly, right? But I feel like this Pokestop is your first hint at what sort of Lost Box decks you're up against. I love the Turbo Lost Box decks are using Pokestop, but not all of them, right? And now there's 2 important potential targets for the Kyogre. So if Sawyer is able to find 2 prizes anywhere on these other Pokemon, then those 2 are ripe for the taking for Kyogre, especially because there's no mana fee in play yet.
With the second rare candy of the turn for Felipe here, Infernal Rain is now used to charge up that NTV in the active spot, get that last energy on that Charizard EX. And Felipe will now be able to start taking some prize cards. And with that 230 HP on that NTV, it's going to be a little harder for Sawyer to take a knockout.
So you're definitely very relieved to not see an Iono get rid of his Colress from hand, especially with the other one being prized. But this is why Charizard can be a little troublesome for Lost Box decks. Just the humongous amount of HP that these Pokemon naturally have over on Charizard's side is very, very difficult for these decks to take down. So Lost Box has the speed advantage, but Charizard definitely has the HP advantage.
Off this Colress's experiment to start things off for Sawyer's turn. They find Comfey, Escape Rope, going to the Lost Zone. There's Super Rod, Energy, and Sableye to the hand. Now with 6 in the Lost Zone. After this flower selecting, well, 2 energy. We'll have 7, so Mirage Gate will now be available for Sawyer. But with 1 in the Lost Zone, 1 in the prize cards, it's going to put a lot of pressure on these last 2.
Indeed, those resources are definitely dwindling for Sawyer before even doing anything generally this game so far. The Recycler in the Lost Zone, the Greninja in the Lost Zone, a Mirage Gate, now a Super Rod and the prizes as well, now an extra energy. All of these things are definitely going to be affecting Sawyer's late game plan, right? And with this Super Rod being played at this point in time, I'm pretty sure that effectively takes away the Kyogre possibility. There's 2 Super Rods left, and that's not enough to pull off a full power Kyogre if you end up getting rid of your resources or discarding energy by retreating and whatnot. So it's going to be really, really difficult to pull off, to rely on Kyogre to win this game, rather.
Yeah, definitely awkward sequencing here, too. Had the Super Rod back that Cramorant and the Lightning Energy just to nest ball it back out. But had an energy in hand, maybe you could have retreated, but you kind of want to retreat to the Cramorant as well.
Now, an ideal scenario that you would love to have as a Lost Box player is to use your Raikou to take down your opponent's Pidgeot. However, that is also not available because Kyogre does not play Boss's Hoarders regularly. So I think Sawyer, with this line of play and with 1 Super Rod having been utilized already, I think it's going to be more down to trying to use Sableye to maximize the prizes on Entei and then pick up the Mew, maybe eventually pick up a Charmander before it evolves, target down the Luminion. I do not think we're going to see a Kyogre in this match.
Yeah, before it evolves, it might evolve this turn, Pablo. Quick search off that Pidgeot EX. And there's the penny to pick up that NTV. 2 turns just completely erased by that supporter card from Sawyer's side of things. And it is just not looking good this early game for Sawyer against this Charizard EX.
Indeed. Whether Kyogre is part of your game plan, yep. There you go. Yeah, Sawyer very well recognizing there's just no chance. I'd rather have maximum amount of time to close out 2 games. And that penny, yeah, the card that we were talking that a lot of players have opted not to play anymore, coming in extremely clutch for Felipe, which you can see is trying to be serious, but his
hold back the smile
of like, yes, I won my first match. And I'm going to say it's his first time ever on stream, so really cool to see. And really well played for sure. Yeah, direct, straightforward, to the point. His deck did what it needed to do and did it very, very well.
And in a lot of these Charizard EX decks, you see Radiant Charizard as the card of choice. Radiant Serena is going to be the Radiant for Felipe here, and it is great in this matchup. But here is that quick search. Having access to any card in your deck means you can play a lot of these one-of techs, and just having that penny to clear off that 220 damage, it was the writing on the wall for this game 1 for Sawyer. Really just did not have much of anything going for him. Had awkward Lost Zones, getting that Radiant Greninja in the Lost Zone off that first flower selecting. Then Felipe able to retreat, take the knockout, and from there Sawyer did not see anything going. Hopefully we'll have some more time for games 2 and possibly 3 yet again.
Yeah, game-winning penny, very cool to see. And I want to make a big comparison between this match and these sort of decks as opposed to something like what we saw last round with Lugia, right? Lugia is the flippiness and the variance that comes with it. Here, you search for any card that you want at any given moment. So if you're making your decisions correct, that's definitely going to favor you in the long run.
All right, taking a look at the prize cards here. Luminion V up at the top. Double Forest Seal Stone for Sawyer. That's the only 2 copies that he plays. So they could be in a little bit of a trouble here.
Yeah, those 4 Seal Stones, which give you essentially Pidgeot for a turn, right? They transform your Dragonite into a Pidgeot or your Raikou into a Pidgeot. Not available for Sawyer. And as you mentioned, Kyogre is definitely not a deck that takes a lot of prizes usually, so accessing those could be a little difficult. But starting off with the Battle VIP Pass, starting off with the Raikou up front, the Raikou could be a liability for Sawyer at a point in time where he's able to take a knockout on Cramorant. But now that he's going first, I do wonder if maybe I got it wrong and it was just Felipe that won the coin flip in game 1.
Maybe just the judge was asking who's going first. Like, oh, I'm going first.
Yeah, probably. I'm looking too much into it.
Most of the time against decks that need to evolve, you always want to go first just so they don't have that extra turn to get those attackers in play, especially against a deck that plays Rare Candy and really relies on it. Sawyer starting things off with a Battle VIP Pass, so pretty good start here. Raikou V in the active spot, so you can fleet-footed, get an extra card. 2 Super Odds in the prize cards, as well as those 2 Forest Seal Stones. So going to be a little rough on those decisions as we keep going.
Yeah, especially if you end up encountering a tough decision with Flower Select or Colress, where you have to Lost Zone one of your Super Odds or your Energy Cycler, as we saw in the previous game. So you're really walking on thin ice, basically, with this list, giving himself very few margins. Of course, getting Pokemon back is important, but only 1 Energy Cycler could prove to be difficult, especially with the prizes that he currently has.
Oh, it was another Colress's Experiment water Pokemon, but a lot easier to get rid of that Manaphy than that Radiant Greninja.
Yeah.
Retreat with the Psychic Energy, finds another Colress's Experiment.
Yep. Now, of course, you're always happy to see Colress, but seeing that both of them on turn 1, if your opponent ends up playing an Iono, that's actually really, really bad for you. So it's a bittersweet feeling seeing those Colress in your hand on turn 1 when you go first.
Nest Ball here for Felipe, eyeing down that Entei V, putting in a ton of work that game 1. Maybe you can do the same here this game 2.
And now, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's the Penny, obviously ended up being the game-winning card in the previous match, but there's also a Radiant Serena in Felipe's deck. This Radiant Serena can potentially heal leftover damage from Sableye, and because game 1 was so short, Sawyer did not get a chance to see that Radiant Serena in Felipe's deck. So at some point we might see Sableye placing some damage counters, Sawyer doing some mats in advance for future turns, and then that Radiant Serena all of a sudden wrecking their plan. So we'll have to see if that ever comes into play. Something to watch out for in the coming turns.
All right, we have switched from the Entei V. Now we're eyeing down a couple of options. Another Charmander, Manaphy, and the Mew. And the Mew seems like the choice for Felipe here. Has that Mysterious Tail ability, being able to look at the top 6 cards. And you can grab an item that you find there. It's a way to just dig further for that Battle VIP Pass.
Yeah, now Mew, of course, finding Battle VIP Pass is the dream. However, Felipe did prize 2 of them. And I don't think Battle VIP Pass is something you ever check for in terms of checking your prizes. But if your play depends on Battle VIP Pass and you're fetching that Mew, I think that's the one time where you really want to check to see if that's available. However, it seems like the Mew here is more towards your Charmander is likely going to go down. You promote that, you're giving yourself a big chance to hit that rare candy.
Sawyer has Artisan to start things off. Stadium searches your deck for a non-rule box Pokemon, puts it on your bench. Just another way to get that Cramorant, get Comphase at no cost to you other than your Stadium for the turn. And with that Cramorant, we'll be able to pretty much take a knockout as long as there's a switch effect in the hand. Or no, there's the Colress's experiment too. Yeah.
Yep, there's a Colress. So I like this thinning. You don't want to see Cramorant in those cards from Colress. You want to see other better cards or potentially other worse cards that you can then Lost Zone away. And we could also see an attack from Raikou. However, there is an opening. Once again, there's no Manaphy. I know Felipe was considering going for the Manaphy to protect his bench, but that would have come at the cost of either Mew or the Charmander. So if Sawyer is able to pull off a Radiant Greninja play here, that would be incredibly devastating.
One card so far set aside from this Colress's experiment. Looked like double water energies in there. Didn't see the other card go into the Lost Zone, but picks up Escape Rope and a third Comfey.
Yeah, so perhaps...
Oh, wow.
Yikes, that is rough. 2 energies off the top.
So that's 3 energies in the Lost Zone now. 2 lightning and a water.
2 lightning only leaves 1 left over for either Raikou or Dragonite to attack with. Felipe doesn't have full information yet on exactly what version he's up against at this point in time. So if you see 2 lightning and you were up against Turbo, there is a chance that your opponent can't attack with Raikou or Dragonite anymore. It is not the case, right? But it's something to keep in mind.
I think after game 1 with the Energy Recycler going to the Lost Zone, you kind of have to expect it's going to be Kyogre. But there is the retreat of the Comfey, taking the knockout with Spit innocently, and this is why Felipe got the Mew, so he can promote it to the active spot, try to find that much-needed rare candy. And one thing that Sawyer's missing, that Radiant Greninja. All the energy in the hand, unable to really get rid of it.
Yeah, all the energy in the hand, and then also all the energy in the Lost Zone. He really needs to make the energy he has left over really count, right? He needs to make sure that all those resources are going to be able to be utilized properly and to their full extent. And now that Manaphy is definitely getting in the way of whatever Sawyer was planning for next turn.
All thanks to that Artisan Stadium. Remember, it's a stadium card. Both players can use it. Thins the deck out a little bit more for this Mysterious Tail. Can we find a way to get rare candy, or if needed, the EX Pokemon?
Big Mew here. Woo. Grabs the rare candy. So based on how quickly we grabbed it, there's the Pidgeot. Gonna go for that Quick Search. Gonna go for another rare candy.
This is what the deck wants to do. Double stage 2, turn 2. This Pidgeot EX able to really just make everything so much easier.
Indeed, and I feel like we keep talking about how stage 2s are slow, stage 2s are hard to get into play. Are they? Are they really? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? I feel like turn to Charizard, turn to Pidgeot is so common. I mean, of course, the deck is designed to be able to accomplish that. They did rely on the Mew, but yeah, very smartly goes for the Arven. It's a little bit of extra thinning. No V Pokemon in play available just yet to utilize that Force Seal Stone. But yeah, it's extra thinning, and those Arvens definitely have diminishing returns as the game goes on.
Now, is Felipe just playing like one of each different energy? I know there's 4 different rare candies. Man after my own heart here.
I know. that is something that I will never agree with. Yeah, as a veteran of the game, please play the same energy. It's just easier on the eye, right?
There is the knockout. Turn to Burning Darkness from Felipe. And Sawyer has a lot of ground to make up now.
Yeah, that 330 HP Pokemon, very difficult for Sawyer to take down. There's no way to do it in a single hit. And now Felipe's bench is looking very scarce, right? There isn't a lot there to target down with Sableye or target down eventually with Kyogre. And the number one thing standing in your way is this Manaphy. Getting rid of that Manaphy is one of Sawyer's priorities, as well as dealing with that Charizard, perhaps. Though there is a universe where Sawyer never has to deal with that Charizard, but that does require Felipe to bench something else, because right now there's only 4 prizes in play on the bench, and Sawyer needs to take 5.
Well, I believe off that Colress's experiment, we did see the Echoing Horn from Sawyer's side of things, so that's what they're hoping to do. Take those knockouts and then bring back a Pokemon. Just, hey, that was so good, let's try it again.
Yeah, we could see Sableye come in, take more than 2 or 3 prizes, and then finish off that Pidgeot with the Kyogre play. Those energies in the Lost Zone, though, are problematic for Sawyer, so he's going to need to really make every resource count.
Dragonite V's played down, and we're going to see the first Mirage Gate of this game so far. First Mirage Gate of the match.
Yeah, so here we see the third Lightning Energy, the extra water, and I guess opting to deal with a Charizard also definitely a good plan, you know? Especially now that Sawyer has only taken one prize card, Felipe will require a choice build to deal with it, which he can search for, right? But that means you're not searching for a different card. And off the Arbin, we did see Felipe chose to grab the Force Seal Stone instead of that choice build.
Second Mirage Gate puts the Psychic on the active Comfey and that second Water on the Dragonite V. So Sawyer has the attack lined up here. Dragon Gale, 250 damage is a lot of damage, but not when you're facing down a 330 HP Charizard EX.
Exactly, not quite enough, and then it also leaves the opening to where Felipe might choose to reveal the Radiant Serena here. Healing 20 damage off a Charizard doesn't sound too fantastic, but that is less damage that is on the board for Sableye to be able to have left over to knock out other things, right? 8 damage counters and 4 elsewhere is definitely worse than 10 and 2, right? Which then get immediately healed by Radiant Serena again. So the math really works out well in Felipe's favor. So Felipe has the priority to set up another Charizard above all, but he has the tools to deal with Sawyer's plan right now.
Well, there we do see the Dragon Gale. Sawyer was thinking about benching that Sableye, but you're going to save it from getting a little bit more damage on it. And now it's Felipe's turn to try to get another Charizard set up. It looks like just the one in play, no Charmander. And eyeing down that Charmander off the Artisan. Such a powerful stadium for this deck. And Felipe only plays one. This is using Sawyer's right now.
Indeed. Yeah, that Artisan from Sawyer actually has helped Felipe now twice by being able to fetch that Manaphy, now fetching that extra Charmander. And he did eye the 60 HP Charmander first, which I think would have been a mistake. It opened up a 2-price turn on Charmander and the Mew, but the 70 HP Charmander definitely the better one to play from that 151 set. The attack is, or the attacks are essentially not great, but that 10 extra HP makes a world of difference in this matchup.
Well, you never Blazing Destruction, a Path to the Peak that was in play?
Not often enough to where it matters, right? If I'm doing that, I'm probably in trouble, but it's a nice option to have at 100%.
Quick search here, finds Boss's Orders, going to bring up that Raikou V. Who needs a choice belt when you just have that 20 damage from the Dragon Gale, takes the knockout, goes down to 3 prize cards remaining.
Now, Sawyer sitting in a quite a decent position still, right? Could Roxanne this turn, could take down the Charizard, and if you Roxanne plus take down the Charizard, off of 2 cards, right, plus your top deck, Quick Search is good, but it only searches for 1 card. And what Felipe really needs is Rare Candy plus Charizard. So if we see that Colress, that could be huge. And, Roxanne. Oh, gosh.
Radiant Greninja and Mirage Gate, the choices for this flower selecting. And this is just another awkward decision for Sawyer here. Usually when you're playing a Lost Zone box deck, you're just like, all right, if I don't see Battle VIP Pass, I want to see them whenever I flower selecting because that's just the easiest choice. But it has been very difficult for Sawyer to navigate these games.
Indeed, and Radiant Greninja hitting the Lost Zone is just so big because if it hits the discard pile for whatever reason, there's always a chance it comes back. But in the Lost Zone, now that Manaphy does not need to be prioritized early on, right? There's still a threat of Kyogre, but for now, Felipe in a pretty decent position. That Pidgeot is definitely a little scary to promote because the Raikou could come back from the discard pile. However, I do think it seems obvious that it's going to be the Sableye. And I like the Mew promotion.
Yeah, Mew's most likely going to either get knocked out or if it's not, then you can have Mysterious Tail available to you. Find that rare candy that you were talking about a little earlier. And looks like we have a Super Rod here. Going to shuffle back 2 Psychics and a Water, it looks like.
Yeah, I actually really like that Mew promotion. It gives you that possibility to find a rare candy, and then you can search for the other missing piece or find an Ultra Ball, and then you quick search for the rare candy, right? So I don't think there's ever a universe where Sawyer does not KO the Charizard with Lost Mine here, but yeah, that escape rope could actually prove to have been very useful for Felipe. I guess he could have just promoted the Mew after the Charizard went down, but it's a good decision to make, because if you promote the Pidgeot, right, then you can't retreat and then retreat again.
Yeah, especially if you promote the Pidgeot EX. Sawyer could have just super rotted the Raikou back, had the Mirage Gate with the Nest Ball, so instead opted for that second Sableye, Psychic for the turn, there's the Roxanne.
Yeah, the Roxanne coming in big here, 2 cards plus a top deck, and now thanks to Mew being active, Felipe will be able to have a solid chance at a rare candy Charizard. But if Felipe is not able to accomplish that, then all of a sudden Sableye survives and is placing damage counters everywhere.
6 cards for Sawyer off this Roxanne. Like you were saying, 2 for Felipe here. Couple of escape ropes, Echoing Horn, Super Rod. So what do you target down here? Do you take the Charizard EX KO? Do you get rid of the Manaphy?
I definitely think, yeah, you always go after the Charizard, because then you make it so much harder for your opponent to attack again. You protect your Sableye in that regard. And then seems like, yeah, we're spreading them,
and
because
that's not,
yeah,
the Radiant Serena can come in clutch if Felipe has access to it along with the Rare Candy Charizard.
Yeah.
Get rid of the damage spread out by Sawyer and that Lost Mine.
Now, Rare Candy Charizard plus Radiant Serena off a 3-card hand is a big ask, but not impossible.
3 cards.
It's 3 cards, yeah, that's true. We've seen less likely things happen for sure.
6 cards off the top for this Mysterious Tail.
I really couldn't see Felipe's hand or the draws from the Mew. Chooses a Nest Ball.
That's Radiant Serena.
That's Radiant Serena. There is an Ultra Ball in Felipe's hand and a Charizard EX, I think.
Oh, this is just an embarrassment of riches, Pablo.
Is it actually going to be search for Charizard, Nest Ball for Radiant Serena, rare candy, quick search for rare candy?
Keep an eye on Sawyer's reaction. Radiant Serena.
There. Sawyer just said, Felipe, that's mean, and I cannot disagree with that. That is a mean card to have in your deck against Lost Box.
It's about to be a little more mean with this quick search here, finding another rare candy.
Yeah, so I mean, did he Ultra Ball for the Radiant Arena or Nest Ball? He must have Nest Ball, right? Yeah. He must have Nest Ball for Radiant Arena, Ultra Ball for the Radiant Charizard, and then quick search for Arven to get a tool card and that rare candy.
So quick search for the Arven. There's that rare candy. And like you said, he already had the Charizard EX in hand.
Yep. There we have it. Wow, what a Roxanne draw. I don't know, like Felipe's gonna be down to 2 prizes here. So how do you recover from this? All Felipe now needs is a boss's orders to target down the Dragonite. The Dragonite cannot deal with the Charizard, and there is no 3 prizes available for Sawyer to take with Sableye. So what's the plan here?
Honestly, it's looking very rough. Felipe going down to 2 prize cards, thanks to that Burning Darkness. Kyogre doesn't even do it here because the Manaphy.
Yeah, Sawyer needs 2 turns.
Echoing Horn, is there a 60 HP Charmander in the discard? No.
I mean, even if there was, right, there's the possibility to get 2 prizes for Sawyer. In an imaginary world where there was a 60 HP Charizard or where there was a Halucha, but there isn't. So Sawyer can at most get 1 prize card. Nothing survives the hit from Felipe. So Sawyer needs to use Sableye, take 1 prize card, probably the Manaphy, and then have the leftover damage on the Mew, and then hope he's able to survive. But there's quick search, and quick search for boss knocks out that Dragonite. So I don't see any way.
I think the way is hoping Felipe's last 2 prizes are the last 2 boss's orders in the deck.
That might be the only win condition, which it's not 0%,
Yeah.
right? There is a world where that happens, but it's really rough. And this is why Charizard, I think this is why Charizard was picked by a lot of these very good players. It has a decent Lost Box matchup. You survive the first few turns, you get double Charizard and Pidgeot out, you're in it, yeah?
This has just been an insane game for Felipe here. Having access to that Pidgeot EX and Charizard on turn 2, and has just been taking knockout after knockout against Sawyer and his Lost Zone Kyogre. Hasn't really seen much of any Kyogre. It's all been about Dragonite and Sableye this game. But really, we're just going through the motions here.
Indeed. We can talk all we want about how powerful Charizard is as a card, and it is, yeah? But generally, the MVP, at least this game, has been Pidgeot. Pidgeot searching for that missing piece. Without Pidgeot, you might get one Charizard out, but getting that second one would be so much harder if you didn't have Pidgeot. So I don't think we give Pidgeot enough credit. I think when it was released, people were hating on Pidgeot. I was a Pidgeot believer. I played with Quick Search 15 years ago. I'm fairly certain we're going to see a lot of this card.
Like you're saying, you're old. So.
I am old. I am old indeed. I've been playing this game for a very long time. And usually that equates to a lot of accumulated knowledge, which is a good thing.
Definitely more than me. I forget a lot. Echoing Horn, bringing out the Charmander, but with the Pidgeot EX in the active spot, no way to take the knockout on that 200 HP Pokemon. Sawyer's just going to have to settle for this Lost Mine. And it's only a matter of time. Either Boss Orders is in hand or Quick Search will be able to find it for Felipe. And going up to, what, 6-0 now to start things off in Toronto.
6-0, pretty much guaranteeing day 2. Now, interesting to see of the escape rope, we did see Pidgeot be promoted. No fear of the Raikou. Maybe that signifies that there's already a Boss's Orders in hand, or maybe you can't search for Boss and Energy. However, there was everything in the hand, so.
Yeah, and I think with Sawyer getting the Cramorant before the escape rope.
Oh, there you go.
No route to play that Raikou again, and with that Quick Search Boss's Orders, Felipe Luna, 6-0 with Charizard Pidgeot EX.
Pretty much guaranteeing his spot on day 2, and now with 3 rounds left over after a flawless start, you're gunning for that 9-0, right? You're feeling good, you're feeling confident. You just demolished a Lost Box on stream. Why not do that 3 more times? Definitely in a fantastic position, and enviable, if you will.
Not only a Lost Box, but a Lost Box and a player coming off a fresh top 8 just a couple of weeks ago. Looking pretty good going forward for Felipe in this tournament. Sawyer not out of it yet, though. They still have a lot of work to do, but 5-1 is still a really good record for this tournament. We'll need to win 1 more and then hopefully pick up another win or that tie.
Indeed. Now, key moments here, that game 1 penny, right? Cramorant putting Entei at 1 damage counter away from getting KO'd. Then Sableye could have potentially put in the work, taken 3 prizes the turn after, but Felipe coming in clutch with that Quick Search for the penny to heal.
Yeah, 230 HP on that Entei V. Just putting in a ton of work here. The math works out perfectly for Felipe. Uses that Quick Search after the Fleet-Footed to be able to find that powerful supporter card, and was pretty much just an instant scoop for Sawyer after realizing, yeah, I don't really have much play here.
Yeah, I think Sawyer must have thought at that point, wow, that is a very mean card to play. And then he actually told Felipe when he missed the Radiant 39, it was really mean. And yep, that caused the scoop. Very understandable. Sawyer fully understanding he needs plenty of time to finish out games with Lost Box. And we're going to see a quick KO here for Sawyer, but then Felipe had the perfect response to that.
And being able to take the knockout with Cramorant on turn 2, had a couple Colress's experiments in hand, but having to deal with 330 HP on that Charizard EX is a lot. And then, of course, the boss's orders taking the KO on the Raikou V. Thanks to that Dragon Gale, really like just swung the entire game.
Indeed. Now, In that particular turn, I was surprised he quick search for boss instead of like Arven for choice build and then just eliminate the Dragonite along with all those energies in play. But maybe he figured that the Raikou was a bigger threat to his Pidgeot, right? So
Yeah.
there is definitely merit to eliminating that and forcing your opponent to have more out of their hand to be able to recover the Raikou, put it into play, and then that's another two-prizer into play. So definitely a lot of wiggle room, and you can see how all these little decisions can make a big difference in the game of Pokemon.
Yeah, especially all of those just awkward flower selectings and Colress's experiments from Sawyer's side of things. Having to get rid of that Radiant Greninja in that game 1 off your first flower selecting is never what you want to see. And then again, having to get rid of it in game 2, it was just not where you want to be. There's plenty more action for Sawyer to try to make it to day 2 yet again. Has been pretty consistent throughout these entire regional events to do it as well.